My name is Eleanor Ward. 5 years ago, my family erased me. Not because I stole. Not because I hurt anyone. Not because I failed. But because my sister lied. And they believed her. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in Hartford. The houses were close together. The lawns were always cut short. Curtains were always clean. Smiles were always fake. My father, Mark Ward, believed one thing. People are always watching. My mother, Linda Ward, believed another. What will they say? That was our family rule. Not love. Not trust. Reputation. And in that house, my older sister Claire was perfect for reputation. She was beautiful. Loud. Charming. She could laugh at the right time. Cry at the right time. Hug at the right time. She knew how to perform. I didn't. I was quiet. I liked books. I liked studying. I didn't talk unless someone asked me something directly. Claire shined. I existed. Claire was 2 years older than me. She was head cheerleader in high school. She dated the football captain. She won a most popular in senior year. My father kept her photos in frames on the living room wall. When I graduated high school with highest honors, my certificate stayed in a drawer. But I didn't hate her. Not then. Because I thought that was normal. Some girls are stars. Some girls are shadows. I was the shadow. The day my life changed came in March. A thick envelope arrived from Oregon Health and Science University. I opened it alone in my bedroom. Congratulations. I read that word 3 times. I got in. Medical school. I walked downstairs slowly. My hands were shaking. Dad? I said. He didn't look up from his newspaper. Yes. I got accepted. He lowered the paper. For real? Yes. He stood up. He read the letter himself. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That's impressive. Impressive. That was the first time my father ever looked at me like I mattered. My mother called 3 relatives that night. Eleanor is going to be a doctor. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Across the dinner table, Claire smiled at me. But her eyes were not smiling. I didn't understand that look then. I do now. Moving to Portland was the first time I breathed freely. No comparisons. No whispers. Noah, why can't you be more like your sister? Medical school was hard. Brutal. Long nights. Endless exams. But I loved it. I loved anatomy lab. I loved hospital rotations. I loved learning how the human body fights to survive. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. In my 2nd year, I met Hannah. Hannah was bright, sarcastic, brave. She had no family left. Just her grandmother, who had passed away years ago. We became sisters in a way I never experienced before. She would say, when we're surgeons, we'll save lives together. I believed we would. 3rd year. Everything changed in one afternoon. Hannah fainted during rounds. Tests were done. Scans came back. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The word terminal hung in the air like smoke. She had maybe months. Maybe less. She sat on her hospital bed staring at the wall. I don't have anyone, as she whispered. I held her hand. You have me. And I meant it. I requested a one-semester leave of absence from medical school. Everything was official. Signed papers. Approval letters. I wasn't quitting. I was pausing. But I didn't tell my parents. Not immediately. Because I knew how they thought. Education is success. Pausing is weakness. Illness is inconvenience. I told Claire instead. We were on the phone. Hannah is dying, I said quietly. There was silence. Then Claire sighed. That's sad. I'm taking a semester off to care for her. Another silence. Don't tell Mom and Dad, she said quickly. They'll think you're failing. I'm not failing. I know. But they won't understand. She sounded calm. Supportive. I won't tell them, she said. That was the moment I trusted her. That was the moment she decided to destroy me. 3 days later, my father called me. His voice was cold. You dropped out? My stomach turned. What? Claire told us. You couldn't handle it. You quit. My chest tightened. I did not quit. Don't lie to me. I took a medical leave. It's temporary. Silence. Then he said something that still echoes in my mind. You embarrassed us. Embarrassed. Not worried. Not confused. Embarrassed. My mother got on the phone. How could you waste this opportunity? We told everyone. I didn't waste anything, I said, shaking. I'm going back next semester. But they didn't hear me. They heard Claire. And Claire said I failed. Calls stopped. Texts stopped. My birthday passed. Nothing. Christmas passed. Nothing. I sent proof of my approved leave. No response. Claire sent me one message. You always had to make everything dramatic. I stared at it for an hour. Then I realized something heavy. They wanted to believe her. Because it fit their story. Eleanor, the quiet one, couldn't handle pressure. Claire, the strong one, told the truth. That was easier for them. So they erased me. Hannah lived for more months. I slept on a chair beside her hospital bed. I learned more about pain in those months than in all of medical school. One night she squeezed my hand weakly. Promise me something. What? Don't shrink yourself for people who don't see you. I nodded. She died 2 days later. I returned to medical school alone. I finished what I started. Without family. Without support. Without applause. Just silence. Now I am Dr. Eleanor Ward, Chief Trauma Surgeon at St. Vincent Medical Center. I built my life without them. I married a kind man named Daniel. They weren't invited. They wouldn't have come anyway. And then one night, 5 years later, the trauma pager went off. Female. Early 30s. Severe internal bleeding. Car accident. They rolled her in. Blood everywhere. Unconscious. And when I looked at the face on that stretcher, it was Claire. The trauma bay was loud. Machines beeping. Nurses shouting numbers. The smell of blood thick in the air. And on the stretcher in front of me, Claire. Her blonde hair was soaked red. Her face pale. Her chest barely rising. For a second, just 1 second, I stopped breathing. 5 years of silence. 5 years of rejection. 5 years of being erased. And now she was here. Broken. Needing me. Through the glass doors of the trauma unit, I saw them. My mother. My father. Older now. More tired. But the same. My mother was crying. My father stood stiff, jaw tight, like he was holding anger inside even now. A nurse whispered to them, the chief trauma surgeon is here." My father nodded impatiently. Then I stepped forward. White coat. Stethoscope. Name badge. Dr. Eleanor Ward. My mother's eyes moved to my face. She froze. Her hand gripped my father's sleeve. He turned. Our eyes met. It felt like being punched in the chest. "Eleanor," my mother whispered. I did not answer. Because in that moment, I was not their daughter. I was a surgeon. And the patient on that table was dying. A nurse spoke fast. Internal bleeding. Possible liver rupture. BP dropping. Claire's pulse was weak. Very weak. I could have stepped back. I could have handed the case to another surgeon. No one would blame me. But that wasn't who I was. I stepped forward. Prep for emergency surgery. My voice was calm. Steady. Professional. The same voice that had once trembled on the phone while my father called me a failure. Under bright lights, Claire looked small. Fragile. Not the confident, loud, untouchable sister from my memories. Just a human body fighting to survive. I opened her abdomen carefully. There it was. Severe internal bleeding. Her liver was badly damaged. For 4 hours, I worked. Sweat ran down my back. My hands moved without shaking. I clamped vessels. Sutured tears. Controlled bleeding. This was what I trained for. This was why I never quit. And somewhere deep inside, I realized something powerful. No one could erase what I became. Not even them. When I finally walked out, my surgical cap still on, my parents stood up at the same time. "Eleanor," my mother began. "She's alive," I said first. My father swallowed. "Is she going to be okay?" "She'll survive." The next 48 hours are critical. Silence. The air between us felt heavy. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You're a surgeon?" "Yes." "At St. Vincent?" my father asked quietly. "St. Vincent Medical Center." "Yes." He looked confused. "But Claire told us." "That I dropped out?" My voice was calm. But sharp. He didn't answer. Because he knew. They had never checked. Never asked for proof. Never called my school. They just believed her. Because it was easier. My mother sat down slowly. She said you failed exams. That you were too embarrassed to tell us. I stared at her. "I sent you documents. Emails. Letters." "We thought you forged them," my father said. Forged. Like I was some criminal. I laughed once. It didn't sound happy. "For 5 years, you didn't try to meet me. You didn't visit. You didn't even check." My father opened his mouth. Closed it again. There was nothing he could say. Because the truth was simple. They chose her. And they were wrong. 2 days later, Claire regained consciousness in the ICU. I stood at the foot of her bed. She blinked slowly. Her eyes found mine. Confusion. Then recognition. Eleanor, her voice was weak. Yes. You operated on me? Yes. She looked away. Silence filled the room. You're really a surgeon? She whispered. Yes. A tear rolled down the side of her face. I didn't think you'd actually make it. There it was. Not shock. Not misunderstanding. She had lied because she believed I would fail anyway. You told them I dropped out, I said quietly. She didn't deny it. They always compared us, she whispered. When you got into medical school, it was the first time they looked at you the way they looked at me. Her fingers tightened on the blanket. I panicked. So she destroyed me. Because she was afraid, why didn't you fix it? I asked. After they stopped talking to you, it felt too late. Too late. 5 years of silence. 5 years of birthdays. 5 years of life. Too late. I felt something strange in my chest. Not anger. Not exactly. More like distance. The girl who once cried because her parents ignored her? She wasn't standing here anymore. I was someone else now. Stronger. That evening, my father asked to speak with me alone in the hospital hallway. He looked smaller than I remembered. I was wrong, he said. Those 3 words felt unfamiliar in his mouth. I should have checked. I should have listened. Yes, I said simply. He looked surprised at how calm I was. Can we start again? He asked. I thought about the empty holidays. The unanswered messages. The wedding they never attended. The nights I cried quietly in my apartment in Portland, wondering what I did wrong. You can't erase 5 years, I said gently. He nodded slowly. I know. But for the first time in my life, he looked at me not as the quiet daughter. Not as the disappointment. But as an equal. A week later, Claire was stable. Healing. She asked me to sit with her. I hated how jealous I was, as she admitted. You were finally becoming something bigger than me. I didn't smile. I never wanted to compete with you. I know, she whispered. And maybe that was the saddest part. She knew. She just couldn't handle it. When I left the hospital that night, the sky over Portland was soft and grey. I sat in my car and breathed deeply. For years, I thought success would feel loud. Like fireworks. Like applause. But it didn't. It felt quiet. Steady. Like peace. They had erased me. But I didn't disappear. I became something they couldn't ignore. And the best part? I didn't need their approval anymore. Claire stayed in the hospital for 12 days. 12 days where everything we had avoided for 5 years slowly came to the surface. And for the first time, no one could pretend anymore. Every afternoon, my parents sat in Claire's room. My mother brushed Claire's hair gently, like she used to when we were children. My father stood near the window, arms crossed, quiet. When I entered the room in my white coat, something had changed. They moved slightly. Made space. For me. Not out of pity. Out of respect. It felt strange. On the 4th day, Claire asked to speak with me alone again. Her voice was still weak. Eleanor, did you ever hate me? The question surprised me. I thought carefully before answering. I hated what happened, I said. But I never hated you. She closed her eyes. I hated you, she whispered. That honesty hurt more than the lie. Why? I asked softly. Because you didn't need attention. You didn't try. And still, you were becoming something bigger. She swallowed. I built my whole identity on being the best one. The admired one. When you got into medical school, it felt like I was disappearing. Disappearing. The same word that defined my 5 years. We were two sisters, both afraid of becoming invisible. That night I couldn't sleep. I remembered being 8 years old. Claire had won a school award. My father lifted her in the air. I had drawn a picture that week too. I held it in my hands the whole evening, waiting for someone to notice. No one did. It wasn't Claire's fault. It was the system we grew up in. Love based on achievement. Approval based on comparison. We were raised to compete for oxygen. 2 days later, my mother stopped me in the hallway. Her eyes were red from crying. Eleanor, we failed you. I didn't speak. She continued. We always thought you were strong. Independent. Quiet. We thought you didn't need as much reassurance. Her voice broke. So we gave more to Claire. I let that sit between us. Parents often don't realize that the quiet child still needs to be seen. Still needs to be chosen. You believed her so easily, I said gently. My mother nodded slowly. She cried. She said you were ashamed. That you didn't want us to contact you. I almost smiled at the irony. The one who lied cried. The one who told the truth stood silently. And silence lost. On the 7th day, something unexpected happened. Claire asked my father to leave the room. Then she looked at me. There's something else, she said. My chest tightened. What? The car accident wasn't entirely an accident. The room went very still. I was arguing with someone on the phone, she admitted. I wasn't paying attention. Who were you arguing with? She hesitated. Mom. That surprised me. She was comparing me again, Claire said quietly. She said, look at Eleanor. She's a respected surgeon. What are you doing with your life? I blinked. So now I was the comparison. Claire gave a small, sad laugh. Life has a strange sense of humor. For years, I had been the shadow. Now I was the standard. And it crushed her. That evening, my parents and I sat together for the first time in 5 years. No hospital noise. No doctors around. Just us. My father looked exhausted. I built this competition, he said slowly. I thought pushing you both would make you stronger. It made us enemies, I replied. He nodded. I didn't know how to love without measuring. That sentence explained our entire childhood. Love was always measured. Grades. Popularity. Success. Never feelings. Never vulnerability. A week later, Claire was discharged. She would need months to recover. Before she left, she asked me something. Can you forgive me? The room was quiet. Forgiveness is not a light switch. It's not instant. It's a process. I'm not angry anymore, I said honestly. But trust takes time. She nodded. That's fair. For the first time, we were speaking like adults. Not rivals. Not children fighting for scraps of attention. Just two women shaped by the same broken system. 3 days after Claire went home, I received a letter. Handwritten. From my father. Inside, there was a copy of my original acceptance letter to Oregon Health and Science University. The one I had shown them years ago. He had kept it. Even when he said he believed I quit. At the bottom of the letter he wrote, I was proud then. I'm prouder now. I am sorry I let my pride be louder than my love. I cried. Not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time, accountability was real. People think the hardest part of being rejected by family is the anger. It's not. It's the doubt. The voice that whispers, maybe I really wasn't enough. For 5 years, I carried that voice quietly. Even while saving lives. Even while standing in the operating room at St. Vincent Medical Center. Even while being called a doctor. Success does not silence childhood wounds immediately. It just makes you strong enough to face them. It sounded different this time. Real. And I believed her. As I walked back to my car, I realized something important. The greatest victory wasn't becoming a surgeon. It wasn't proving them wrong. It wasn't saving Claire's life. It was this. I no longer needed to compete. I no longer needed to be chosen. Because I chose myself. Claire decided to tell the extended family the truth. At a small family gathering in Hartford, she stood up slowly and said, I lied 5 years ago. Eleanor never dropped out of medical school. I was jealous. I ruined our relationship. The room went silent. Some relatives looked shocked. Others uncomfortable. My aunt hugged me tightly. I always wondered, as she whispered. For the first time, the false story died. Not because I defended myself, but because the person who created it confessed. That night, my father stood beside me instead of in front of Claire. It was a small shift. But I noticed. Claire began volunteering during her recovery. She told me once, almost dying changes your ego. She started therapy seriously. Our conversations became honest. No sarcasm. No competition. One afternoon she said, You were never my rival. I just made you one. I answered gently. I never wanted to compete. And for the first time, she believed me. My mother called me more often now. Not to compare. Not to measure. Just to ask, how are you? It felt new. Unfamiliar. But real. A year later, something unexpected happened. My father had mild chest pain. Nothing serious, but enough to scare him. He called me first. Not Claire. Me. Eleanor, can you explain these test results? He trusted my knowledge. He trusted my judgment. He trusted me. That was the moment I realized. The balance had changed. Not in a way that hurt Claire, but in a way that finally saw me. 2 years after the accident, we sat together for Thanksgiving. No tension. No performance. Just conversation. At the table, Claire raised her glass. To my sister, who saved my life. I looked at her and replied. To second chances. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the shadow. I felt equal. Not louder. Not brighter. Just steady. They erased me once. But I rebuilt myself. And when they finally saw me clearly, I was no longer asking for approval. I was offering grace.